there needs to be a much closer involvement between local businesses, local employers and the school system. Talk to children when they're very young about what they want to do, to get them thinking about the world of work and how they're going to enter it. Because I think our experience was that employers are actually quite scared, quite anxious. I think the other side of the apprenticeships, from the business perspective, we don't have very many big businesses. We have lots of small businesses. And if a business is worried about surviving 1 year, 2 years, it's a big risk to take on a young person.
And I would be interested in when we talk about good practice, in seeing why sometimes the job is not that attractive, but because the company is welcoming and takes care of the new ones, they stay and they enjoy it, or they build up an experience. And
so it's about even resources inside.
Yes.
Because we were talking recently with Barclays Bank, big name, you've all heard of Barclays Bank, and they were looking at the profile of their employees, and they had hardly anybody under 25, and they thought, well, we want young people to open bank accounts. So we need to ensure that we have young people in our workforce in order to understand what their needs are from their bank, which is going to be different from somebody in their 50s. But it's also good for getting their senior managers and their staff to work, paired up with a young person to say, you can't go to a meeting dressed like that, and you can't talk to him in that way. Those sorts of key skills, which
I think we can also think of doing some kind of awareness raising or work with the companies, not just with the young people.
I'm quite happy to try and get one of our businesses to come along to talk about some of the work they've been doing with long-term unemployed people to get them back into work. And they've got basically been taking groups of 10 young people, unemployed people at a time, training them and trying to place them into jobs. And they've got a success rate of about 67%. So
it's quite often seen as not as good as the academic route.
This is one of the major things that came up when I was doing all the visits time and time again, very different context, but the issue of attractiveness of vocational and technical education. Even in Germany, because people talk outside a lot now, but the trend in Germany is for less and less people to want to participate in such education. Right?
Also, you have to make that argument with the parents as well. Parents and the family are very strong influences of what choice that young person makes.
In Cesena, the lead partner, it's a fundamental problem. They've got all these unemployed young people with degrees and things, and then lots of job vacancies that they can't fill, usually because they want something of a more technical nature.
Too many people finish the study, and in this classical university there are mainly the studies within the teaching. Yes. How many teachers can work at school? So
that would be also adapting university, because I don't want to give the impression that we're talking just about getting people to do vocational. It's all levels of education. This can also, like in Avilés, what's an important thing to do, getting university to be a better transition to working life.
We have on the one hand the skilled worker shortage and these not attractive jobs due to the salary, or it's a hard job, or you have to work at night, all these things at the weekend. And on the other hand, we have a lot of persons who are very qualified on the one hand, but not able to work in their life later because there's a mismatch between the studies and the labor market demands.
We've been working very hard to encourage the take-up of apprenticeships.
They have got, in Germany, systems of dual education for the service sector. which might be more of a, and that might be interesting to find more about.
In Rennes, we would like to develop apprenticeship for service sector, indeed, like business and for graduate university apprenticeship, because it exists and it's not developed enough. Through JobTown, we would like to do more of a service apprenticeship.
I think in Thurrock you've got a pretty clear example of that, because you have this port, right? And then the problems with the locals thinking it was a kind of physically dirty kind of like on the waterfront type port.
It's the port of Tilbury that they actually employ the apprentices. They recognise that they need to invest in young people to make sure that they've got the skills they need in the future. So one of the biggest issues with the English apprenticeship system is it's quite bureaucratic. And that puts a lot of businesses off the system. And one of the things that we aspire to do, and I know that people have done this thing, actually Anna's done this in Enfield, is to set up an organisation that actually employs the apprentices. So for example, it might employ 300 apprentices, and then it loans them to the companies when they need. But we do all the bureaucracy and the paperwork. Our frameworks, so you pick the framework off the shelf from a training provider, and they're quite set. And they don't always meet business needs.
But the dual studies that are familiar in your countries or not?
No. What do you go to study a mixture between school and company?
Yeah.
Not school and company on a higher high qualified. That means that you go to the university for one semester and then you go back to the I don't know, retailer and work for them.
And this exchange of information, see, they don't just get a position to practice. The companies are giving them input into the educational structures and how to do it, and vice versa. It's a triangle between government, which is sort of big daddy oversees the whole thing, private sector, and education and training providers, and they're all hooked up. It's not just getting them a training thing they can do out of work.
Everybody talks about it.
Well,
there's German.
Yeah. Portugal, Spain, Italy, they're all importing a dual system and apprentice systems now from Germany. Also Denmark is helping Spain with some of these implantation schemes, because they used to have apprenticeships in the 70s and then they disappeared as a practice, and now they're trying to bring them back, and they have to get up to speed with making these things work, So I think the obvious interest from the southern countries is this, and not so southern. Well, the other thing we have to look at is problematizing the German. But how exportable is the German model? Which are the aspects which might be of a transferable nature? Which are more specific to very particular circumstances? How flexible is it? Does it have to be industry? Is it service sector? Is it what are the limits?
They have not the information about various jobs they are available.
It's the same in England.
Their understanding of what that would be like is often not as good as it could be. That's also the connection with the world of work. Like when I was in Cyprus, it was the same story. Like young people sort of almost, they might as well just be sort of throwing a dark line, like because they have very little idea of what these jobs are like. So
attractiveness and prevent drop out of apprenticeship.
Is that a problem because they don't finish?
Yeah. Well, because they haven't chosen properly. Because they've chosen apprenticeship because they can't go to the good school. It's not a positive choice. It's a choice, as we say, by default. That's why we need to work on the attractiveness as well, and more information while they are at school about what it's going to be.
It's obviously the need to have very good quality career guidance in schools, which is also aware of what's available locally.
Now, how many of us would know, but how many of us knew when we were 16 what we wanted to do in future? Yes, you go to college and do something, you might not make the right decision, and you might need to go back and do something else.
So it becomes much more difficult once somebody's finished formal education to then go around again. And I think it comes back to what we were saying earlier about being more realistic about the world of work and letting people know at an early age what it's really like.
non-formal is sort of experientially based and somehow, on purpose, it's planned, but it's not in class learning. Yeah? The problem with a lot of it is the validation. They find there's no validation of it, and then there are different solutions. One of the ones I like best is because it's easiest. You just they get technical schools to validate people's qualities. Yeah? And so they learn them, because then because the problem is with the employers, they get some kind of certificate of non-formally acquired skills or something. Yeah, and the employers are like, well, what's that? It's not recognized by any. Non-formal learning is particularly considered important for this so-called generic skills people talk a lot about, like say with young people, they're unemployable because they don't know how to interact, the interview, the sort of interactive social stuff, the time management stuff, these kinds of things, It's not just like IT, how to use Excel or something, but the interactive things, and it's very difficult to teach a lot of these things in a classroom way, like how to interact socially at work. Well, let's on the chalkboard and talk about that. So it's usually some kind of experience-based thing to get them to learn it, But then it's difficult to give people a diploma of some kind that means anything.
We try and persuade companies that they can recruit with different methods as well. We have one that you probably have. We call it recruitment by simulating. Instead of making the young person explain what she can do and sell herself, they actually do things and evaluate people on the spot, so that underqualified people have a chance to
show capacity.
To show capacity.
Yeah, this is very much the validation issue.
Yeah.
But in France, this is actually rather developed. They've got the whole bilan de compétences is a big French thing. Yeah?
They also do what we call validation, VAE, validation des acquis de l'expérience, but that's more for older people. They're funded activities. For example, you do the landscaping or you rebuild a wall. And it's not dedicated to young people, but there are a lot of 25-year-olds that left school at 15, never worked, that are there. And what we do is we have similar things so they learn their math and physics on building the wall, and after a year they get a qualification thing, because they are evaluated on what they've learned on the field. And we use it to build self-esteem, and some of the kids then go back to school.
One of the big feedback points we get from businesses when a young person starts work, they don't start with the right attitude, or they turn up late, they turn up for an interview in a football shirt rather than and it's not necessarily just about training in a qualification, it's about the softer stuff as well.
Well, that's what soft skills or generic skills, that's what I'm getting at, is because they call it generic because it's applicable for everything.
Our businesses say they want 4 things in a young person. They want good numeracy, good literacy, a great attitude, and good communication skills.
We have a problem because we have a very high tax of unemployment. But when we have offers direct to young people is not they have a very strong budget with these kinds of service.
That's one of our main topic in the local group, to work on trust and
Who's got some really good examples of things that they're doing that they would like to come and showcase in Kaiserslautern, things that we can work on.
So maybe what you're saying is we need best practice from a range of different types of. Because we've talked about problem kids, we've talked about high-tech training, universities, primary school stuff. So it's across the board, education and training, a good range of successful best practices.
A session from the viewpoint of the companies. That means what can companies do and how can they learn to keep their young people, and from the other from the other point of view is how can we support the young people to stay in their apprenticeship? Be something like an excursion that you can see the dual system. That means how they enter the companies as well as they have to go to school also. That is,
I think the service sector
point.
version of it was obviously, I think, very interesting.
It's for the handcraft at the moment.
Maybe we can find an example we could bring in for a day, I think, because this issue of the service sector thing is not so well known. Dual systems for all kinds of sectors. Looking at it, how it's applied in very different types of work.